with the content. It's 302. Welcome to the Space Scrum Master. I'm at the Luminary, a very, very nice place. And most important, today we'll discuss the where, that is where you focus when you need to embrace on an improvement initiative. And also look into examples, so real-life examples of where to improve with a breakdown, a functional breakdown of any manufacturing capability in space, but also out of space. It's an example of where we can utilize Joe's methodology. So let me start by sharing the screen. And so the screen that I would like to share is this one. And we need to share, and of course, the sound as well. Okay, I'm going to join you in here. Here I am. So it's not Joe, okay? I'm over here. And also, I think that should be enough for us to get started. So bring his voice on, and let's see how it plays.
Should we first find successes on a simple and likely to succeed project? Or are Agile methods a better fit for a high revenue, high risk, and complicated project? What I'm trying to say here by where is which project. Maybe the better title would be which. But where in the company should we amplify agility and first deploy agility for maximum effect? I mean, you could do the whole company at once if you had the means and were enthusiastic. That works. But if you need to incrementally deploy Agile methods or increase Agile methods, where would you choose to first amplify or deploy Agile methods? David Snowden has proposed a 5-space.
And this is a really interesting question, correct? Where do you start? Because there are always so many problems, so many things to solve, so many of them. So let's see what's the recommendation from Joe. He's going to walk us to the Synovian framework. It's pretty cool.
Map to detect project type. What type is a project? Snowden proposes this map will imply how to lead and make effective decisions. David calls this Synovian or Cynefin. Or more completely, the Cynefin framework, based on a Welsh word which is pronounced Cynefin. That roughly translates as place or habitat. Harvard Business Review called the Cynefin framework a leadership framework for decision-making, even as early as November 2007. We recommend learning and practicing the approach directly from Snowden's Cognitive Edge consultancy. Snowden is often humble, approachable, and easy to listen to. Here is how we would apply Cynefin to answer the question of where to apply our Scrum Masters to increase business performance. First, we will adopt a position of humility. We don't know everything there is to know about our opportunity to achieve. We will assume we are in a state of at least partial disorder. From that, we now have room to learn about our opportunity. We will iterate to make our best guess, whether achieving our opportunity is bottlenecked by completing work that is ordered, complicated, complex, or chaotic. And that's the critical factor here, the way Snowden thinks.
Hello, Bidushi. I hope I'm saying your name well.
You are. How are you?
I'm doing very well. I've just started the session, and there is a link. I hope you can see me. Hello there. You can see me. Yes, cool. And I hope you can see me, and I hope I can see you.
Yes.
And there is a link to a Figma file, and I'll tell you usually how this has been running. We listened to the Joe Justice book, or the Joe Justice framework of Agile Scrum Mastery that has been applied both in Tesla and at SpaceX. And we post a set of comments in the section of the comments so that we can later go back to him, discuss between ourselves, and see how can this be more introduced across the space companies that we run.
Gotcha.
But before that, let me ask you something. I always ask this for the first time that someone joins. and we met in the course that you gave, that excellent course where you could actually put a satellite running. That was pretty cool. I would just like to ask you, what brought you to space? What is the thing in space that you probably could have done 1,000 things, but you are doing space in this time? And what's the change?
I'm one of those people that got hooked on space as a kid, right? I watched us land on Mars, the first mission to Mars, and the images that came down from that just kind of blew my mind. I was like, that is a physical location that's up in the sky. And, I was one of those that had posters on my walls of astronomy, objects and stuff. So I've been hooked forever.
Okay. But then you founded your company, correct?
Yep.
Astro Hub, to provide education and bring more space to more people. How do you? I'm running with the same. I'm going to say challenge, that is, run your own company, run your own things, and connect with people. So how was your shift?
Well, so actually, since you mentioned SpaceX, it's kind of interesting. So I worked I'm in Southern California, right? So I worked at JPL and then at Caltech. And in the late 2000s, we had some of our engineers leave for SpaceX. And at that point, I was like, hey, that's that PayPal guy, isn't it? Let me see what he's up to. And I realized that commercial space was going to be a thing of the future, that was the way to go, because NASA does great things, but it sort of forms the basis, and to take that next step to broaden and democratize access, we'd have to go to the commercial side. So, I did some educating because I was working as a scientist. And then eventually figured out where the best match was between my skill set and gaps in the commercial space sector, and workforce development was pretty obvious, because you can't keep stealing engineers back and forth between a few companies with a finite supply.
Yeah.
That's how I got into it.
Okay. Very, very, very interesting. Let me share with you the file and just walk you through what we have up there, because we've been focusing on different subjects. I'll put it on the chat.
Yep. Got it.
Okay.
Fig Jam. Okay.
Okay. So in here, put on screen. I'm sharing it right, or almost there.
Okay. How will you use it? Personal. Okay.
Trying to bring it to my second screen. But yeah, here we go. So this is kind of how I've been working in the last session. Okay. We go through the book, and each person puts like questions. Let's say, I'll give an example prior to that. Oh, here we go. Okay, this one was cool. Chapter 3, we did build. That is the chapter from the book. And then each person started, writing down questions on, okay, how can I see this thing working, the book working? And then I gave a brief introduction to some of the work that I'm doing. I'm designing a lunar rover, a lunar mining rover. And in that one, we were looking at who was doing it, and I introduced folks to a functional architecture and to a design and to a functional and the physical architecture, and why these things are important. And also provided tons of references to who's doing the work and how is it being done. But later, I think you can go to all of that. For today, what I have planned is to the far right, chapter 5, where you've got this thing in here, the Scrum Master. And later on, although this is called in space manufacturing, I would like to discuss from our knowledge, and we can select a company and say, okay, where would we use the methods above in here, and what would be the highest pay right now? Pretty straightforward. Any discussion we stop. The stickers, I would say mine is I can usually stay with this one, pick up one, and any question just write it down. and later on I'll put this available with other references. I also go back to Joe and ask, hey, from your experience at Tesla or at SpaceX, how did you do this? How could you clarify a project when, for example, the budget was not clear? Or if we have competent different priorities, how do you guys do that in there? So that's, we also have Bas coming in, so everybody knows the method. So I'm going to start playing this back. You have, I would say, pick up number 2 or number 3, pick up 1 and just go ahead and throw down there all of your questions. So I play this out. In the beginning, I start with speed 1.0, then I move to 1.25, and then we move to 1.50 and 1.75 so that we can cover more than 1 hour and way less with time for us to talk. Okay.
Got it.
Cool. Here we go.
Thinks about it is if we can determine if the bottlenecking factor, well, Snowden wants to know, is the work ordered, complicated, complex, or chaotic? Then what I will add to that is what is bottlenecking our speed of innovation? Is the bottleneck ordered, complicated, complex, or chaotic? If we can improve a complicated problem or a complex problem or a chaotic problem or an ordered problem, will that increase the throughput of innovation until the next bottleneck is there? Then we would detect its type. For those of you already confident with Scrum, perhaps on your second reading of this book, we will recommend putting cards in your backlog to learn more about your current opportunity as fast as possible. In the case, the opportunity might be expiring or have a high cost of delay. And that's what I do as an Agile coach, as a chief Agile officer as well, is I do a value stream map analysis of whatever part of the company or flow I get to work with, sometimes the whole company, and attempt to find the bottleneck, then attempt to find how to alleviate it or reduce it as quickly as possible. And a tool to do that is it ordered, complicated, complex, or chaotic?
I want to stop in there, Vidushi, to see if this was more or less clear. Because he uses a 2-step approach. It produces a value chain, an end-to-end value chain, and then on top of that, he loads the. Do you know the Kinefin framework?
The Kinefin?
It's a Kinefin or Cinefin framework. It's something done by David Snowden that allows us to understand, based on the nature of the problem, what kind of solutions we should have.
I'm not familiar with that framework.
I wasn't as well. I was like, this is interesting, because some of those things are a bit. Some of the tools in here are a combination of things that Joe has been using or been trying to use in the many years. Let me pull it up. Yeah, the most known picture is this one. There we go. Okay. The most known picture is this one. That is, come on.
Are you putting it in the chat, or are you putting it?
I believe I'm sharing it.
Okay, let me move to that window. Oh, there I am. Yes.
Okay. So, but it doesn't start. It doesn't start by here. It starts by either using something like this, and I've done this with some kind of success. But I wanted to know more about it. It loads like an end-to-end value chain, correct? Manufacture, prepare, process, verify, join, assemble, and we can have other. And this is for space manufacturing, but it applies mostly. And the reason why I'm putting manufacturing, it's because manufacturing is really the hardest part of space. It's not research, at least from what I've seen. Building up a prototype or several of them is okay, but manufacturing in large scale, it's it's where the value chain breaks. So that's the reason why I'm putting these two. Have you used any of these, or what are your thoughts on that? Applying.
You're asking about the in-space manufacturing, or just in general with just agile planning?
Just in general. Just in general.
Well, it's kind of nice that you're doing this, because in fact, I was just looking at, I've been the past few months since we had the course looking at agile practices for our startup. So I logged in to kind of see how you guys are doing this. And I agree that in-space manufacturing at scale is a real challenge. Now, the specifics that you have listed here are not necessarily relevant to what we're doing, but I can see the touch points, and I can definitely see where this would be pretty relevant. So I'm actually just curious to see what you've put together so far, and I'm kind of excited that you're thinking about this in a more contemporary way, because I think the waterfall approach is just not working.
So the next way after, let's say that you don't call it in space manufacturing, you call it something else. Okay, you call it different breakdowns in here. But the key in here, the switch, is when you pull up and you say, okay, this one is complex. Oh, okay, well, I'm not saying it is, but this one is complex. Let's go back. And this one is, at the moment, chaotic. And this just characterizes the problem, because you don't have enough resources to do everything. So you need to kind of prioritize based on the nature of the problem and where the value is being driven. So that's where that's why the Kinefin is so strong, because you look in here and say, okay, if I have a complex thing, I use an emergent practice. I start doing things, working instruction set coming along, and this is cool. But if I have a problem that is more clear, you have a bottleneck. Oh, I just put the best practice. Okay, it's sense. The thing, Bidushi, that at least we've been trying to avoid is this one. You need to characterize the problem. So it's kind of a two-step approach. That's why it's not as direct. First step is, and I have multiple frameworks that if you need, just tell me kind of overall how your business is organized, and I can send you the frameworks. But then, in order to start deploying agile methods, either you pick up the full company, and that's possible. If you are the CEO, then okay, that's an easy way. We can train all of them. Or you say, okay, I'm going to be selective on these, and I'll start by going. We're just there. Where do I start? Okay, this problem is complex. This problem is chaotic. This problem is clear. And you define your framework based on that. Because there are other considerations, but this one is, this takes you 10 minutes to do, and it already gives you an idea, okay? So that's how Joe does it, and how I learned from him, and how also we can, and then inside, so this is at level 1, but you can then also say, okay, but inside a complex problem, as you know, sometimes there are even if there are parts in there that are clear. And you might say, I want a short win, I'm going to go for this one inside that one. So you kind of characterize 2 times. The other important thing, at least for me, has been to do this with the dotted scheme. So if I have like 3 founders with me, I'll give them the same. You see the colors in the definitions in the Kinefin framework, and each person has a couple of them. Each person has like 5 complex, 3 complicated, 5 complex, 3 complicated, 4 clear, and 2 chaotic. And everyone puts in the value chain which one they think it is. It's a way better way to decide on what to go for. So I hope that was helpful.
Yeah. So it's a framework.
it is a framework. It's a framework based on defining the first value coming from the knowledge of the value chain.
Okay. Yep.
So that was this part of the book. Okay, understanding where the opportunity is. Bas, thanks for coming, man. Any questions, please just let us know. Vidushi, Bas as a company that is doing Bas Iridium, is that correct?
Hey, do you hear me?
I can hear you, Bas.
Yes, I can
great.
hear you.
Great. Please, guys, keep going.
Okay, I'll keep on with the book because I'd like to cover at least 50%. Here we go.
Great.
Now that we've learned a little bit more about our opportunity and what is bottlenecking or achieving that opportunity, we will create a backlog to better achieve it. We will have 4 cases. Initially, please allow us to say that a primary bottleneck to achieving our opportunity is some ordered work. This will be our case 1 of 4. So we'll have a case for each of the 4 major quadrants of Cynefin. There is a 5th quadrant. The Cynefin framework asks us to learn just a little bit more. Is the work likely obvious or complicated? If the work is obvious, we will put our cards in the backlog to check our understanding of best practice. Following this, we will put cards in our backlog to exploit as fast as possible. Now, I intentionally use the word exploit here. I'm an environmentalist. I believe in a post-growth economy. However, the word exploit is exactly what I'm talking about here in business. It's to, as rapidly as possible, devour the inputs to produce the outputs. And I'll talk more about why I think exploit is the correct word and the ethics that implies. Finally, we will add cards in our backlog written to experiment to improve the state of the art of the best practice and exploit even more efficiently and quickly. These innovation cards are very often flow improvements and bottleneck eliminators. For deeper information on this, we recommend learning the flow system from its creators, Brian Ponte-Riviera, a former fighter pilot trained and skilled in rapid decision-making in emerging and high-risk environments, Nigel Thurlow, a former Toyota consultant and later employee, trained and skilled in flow optimizations in the Toyota production system, and John Turner, PhD, who has a deep research modeling and abstraction skills. If you do not have time to dig into their research now, we can summarize this into the following next step for you to take. Create a value stream map from the envisioned destination to the opportunity achieved backwards to your current state. So this is also related to Otto Scharmer's Leading from an Emergent Future, which I talked about in the introduction. If you imagine of all the probable futures, which is the better outcome as far as you can assess now, then create a value stream map from that not yet happened future back to where you are now.
Okay, I'm pausing here and Vidushi for you later to go on. This was on session number 2. That is the goal. And how it is organized based on the goal. All things are organized based on the goal. And the book is really cool as well from Otto Scharmer. And let me give you an example of what he's talking. I'm doing that also for another project. Mm-hmm. This is our planetoid, our new, if we can see this well. Same type of approach, Bas. Bas, you're loving this one in here because we have, so this is essentially how we've been deploying both on the product backlog, on the sprint, and on the doing, and then every week how we've been performing some of the measures. And some of the problems in here are either complex or complicated or chaotic, and then based on that we can refine from not ready to the backlog and then moving forward. We are running a team of 6 people across the world with this type of technology, okay? And it's running, okay? So we'll have an experiment.
Interesting.
A rover being done, I would say we have to do it on time. But there are all sorts of things from social media needs, but we have the high esteem value map as well for the type of work that we are doing, okay? So just to align us on how does this really looks like. Okay.
Impressive.
And that's your backlog in reverse order. And that's my addition to the Flow Systems work and to Otto Scharmer's work. Practically, for our Scrum Masters, that will mean a to-do list of cards, starting with enjoying the benefit of the opportunity achieved. And then the simplest, cheapest, leanest card that allows that to happen. and so on, backwards, until we arrive at our current state. This is how we generate backlog with our teams, when the work is bottlenecked by obvious work. Generating backlog is done regularly in Scrum during each cycle or sprint, during an activity called product backlog refinement. More on that in Chapter 12, Plan. Now we have our backlog to exploit the obvious bottleneck and improve the growing and harvesting, with improving efficiency and speed, every sprint cycle, forever, until we face a change in circumstances. Scrum does a great job here of keeping teams focused on performing the exploitation and improving the exploitation. This is a perfect example of elementary applications of the Toyota production system with Kaizen. Kaizen is the Japanese word for good change or process improvement. In Scrum, Kaizen events are conducted as often as practical. Note, we intentionally use the word exploit here. Please remember that in a systems view, a full exploitation may limit the duration the system can provide value, or the time the system may create desired, wow, this is a difficult sentence. Editors, please help me with this. This is a real difficult one. I'm going to highlight. And there was one just above that was also pretty challenging. I'm not finding now. I should have highlighted it right when I saw it. Editors, please help me improve for version 2. That this chapter looks like it really has some run-on thoughts, which is how I think. But please help me make it so a high school student could comfortably have fun reading this book. That's the approachability I wish to achieve. And it's fine to change the ideas or use different examples, editors. Please think of it like a Disney song when translated into 2 different languages. We don't have to use the same words. It does not have to be literal, but the general meaning should be similar, and it should be fun to listen to, like the 2 languages of a Disney song. That's how I would wish for this book to be edited. Please help me. So let me see, how can I say this? So in a systems view, when we look at the inputs and outputs and other players, other competitors, other beneficiaries, if we harvest everything, if we do what's called a full exploit, the system can, well, possibly the system can die, but we can lose the value of that thing we're harvesting. If there's a forest and we do complete clear cutting, the time until which we can get value from it again becomes incredibly much longer than if we did partial curated harvesting and intentional replantings. So when you're planning your exploits as a product owner, and this is why I intentionally use the word exploit, because if we don't think that our work could be burning out our team or burning out our employees or burning out our customers, burning out the market, or consuming a resource at an unsustainable rate, if we're not a good player in the system, it can limit the overall value not only to us over the long duration, but also to the system, to everyone else. And that is socially, ethically a poor choice to limit the overall utility, overall value of the system. A good backlog, just like any good action in the planet, increases the overall value of the system while apportioning part of the value to the people who are doing the work, who are taking the initiative to understand how to make that happen. That's the goal of your backlog. And this is part of a product owner's job, to legitimately meditate on this, to think deeply on this, and attempt to every day better understand the systems view, which is difficult. I'll talk more about why it's difficult to understand a systems view in this chapter. If we exploit part of the system to the limit, other players in the system, we may create desire in them to stop us. If they're not benefiting from our exploit. We create enemies by overexploiting, and may produce second and further order effects that reduce the net value or even outweigh the net value. So if we do a full harvest in our backlog, a full exploit, like say we hire all the machine learning developers in our geography or in our time zone, we hire 100%, we do a full exploit. Well, that can create backlash. Other companies can create government intervention, and they might shut down machine learning as a practice in our time zone. For example, you can have net negative results to us and the entire system. So avoid full exploits. Find exploits where you get what you need while increasing the value of your part and the overall system, which is more challenging, but that's our job. In this way, even ordered and obvious opportunities actually rely on systems thinking. Systems thinking requires a backlog to continuously reevaluate total value, what we mean and are truly interested in as value. So we have to continually think, what is value to me? What is my understanding of it? What we mean.
I'm going to stop in here because I would like us to go and make an example of this. Okay, it's a really an important part to see how this works in reality. I can definitely help on what you just spoke about. Let's go to where is it? There we go. Okay. And boss, the same thing. If you need any help in here, if you guys remember in the other session, we talked about how to create a mission concept based on the overall, based not only on the requirements from the moon, but these are external things, and then how do you define a mission? But today is a bit it's internal, okay? It's knowing that I've got to do something, and though something has a lot of concern in here, in this case, in my case, is the owner extract. How do I, when identifying my end-to-end processes or my end-to-end value chain, where do I start? What's the most important thing to do? So Bidusha, if you want to, and if you are okay with that, I can take an example and we can do it live. And if there are any questions, we can send them to Joe. What are you okay with that?
That sounds good. Yes.
Okay. So Bidusha, what are your, if you can share, what are
Yes.
your high-level operations or high-level process names?
Sorry, ask the question again, please.
You see the breakdown that you've got in here?
Yes.
Called in space manufacturing.
Mhm.
If we had to call these, I'm going to say, and if you don't want to reveal, if you're going to say Bidusha's business, Astro Hub, what are your 7 high-level boxes? 7 high-level things.
Okay. Components.
Okay.
All right. Let me zoom out for a second, if you could, so I can see. Yeah. Okay. So components. Let's see. Then I'd say that the prep is done. I guess manufacturing processes.
So do you do components? You build them as well, or do them?
Yes and no. All right. So it's kind of just off the top of my head. This is a little bit complicated because we procure some stuff. We also build our own, and then we procure, build, and also contract out to finish some of the build, return it, and then do assembly. So
Yeah, that's
yeah.
yeah. It's very common, except if you're fully vertically integrated, that you do have some kind of procurement.
Yep.
You usually have some kind of also, let's call this in-house assembly.
Assembly, yes.
Because sometimes there are parts of these assemblies that you need to procure and they come back. So, but overall, the in-house assembly, and then do you build them?
So yeah, so the procurement comes from multiple sources. I think that's not really, I guess, relevant to what we're doing here. House assembly. Then we have to build and then test and verify. Yeah, well, V&V, that's right. And then yeah, I mean, we go through that V&V, but that's an iterative process. It's interesting you put 2 in there because that, then that scoots way back over to usually to the build segment. We just iterate on there back and forth.
It's more of a thing like this, correct? It keeps so
right.
We can have it, halfway so that it shows where it goes. But what I'm saying is that you do build, and we can have, if this is more correct, to be fair, to have V&V in there. And what happens next? What is overall, what's your...
I think at that point we do field tests. We do just pick a few people and test off-site. Like we'd pick somebody like you to go in and just run it and see if you can use the satellite remotely.
Yeah.
Yep. And then again, that feeds back into perhaps we realize we need a better camera. I mean, this field test, depending on the outcome, will feed you back into the previous boxes at whatever level.
So if you think about this as the world is happy, you see what I mean? The world is happy. That's what you want to do. You should be able to sell, ship, deliver, and receive the cash.
Correct.
That would be. 1, 2, 3. I think we need something else. I like to have one separate.
Okay, so one thing we should the V&V we're talking about. So there's verification on different levels, right? There's pre-integration verification and then post-integration verification. So you get something from the manufacturer, you have a process of testing right away, and then once you've got that's like, say, the boards, for example, and then when you have the whole satellite, you would go in and that, once you've integrated, and it depends if you want to do this on a subsystem level or the full-on thing. For the sake of discussion, let's just say the full satellite. Then you go in there and you do another verification, because if you wait till the very end, I mean, first of all, that's unagile, if that's a word, and second of all, that just is very complicated. Because then you can't figure out where things went off, went wrong.
Yeah. So what you'll see in an agile environment is that the team is able to go from here to here, the whole team. We don't have divisions. We don't have only one person that procures, one person that does this. We have a whole team that is able to do the full life cycle. So, I mean, is able to go from procure to when I say sell in here, and I want to put one more in here that I'm missing. It's one that is I'm going to call it maintenance, but maintenance dash repairs. Okay, everything that has to do with I need to maintain both the workstation or you need to repair materials. Okay, but these are you see in a regular I would say formal description, they appear at the end. Okay, while the other ones seem to be like more direct. Now, in here, if you want to think about your team in terms of an agile team, they should know a couple of things. They should have the ability to procure by themselves, to create, to do the assemblies, to do full design, testing, verification, and validation. That includes testing. And really, really important, at the end of each sprint, have a product that is, that we can receive customer feedback. And from my experience working, my experience receiving a course from you, we could do that immediately, because I could see if the lines of code that I was writing down were having an effect on the satellite that I had on some places that you guys had. So
yeah, but
I don't know if the team in there was fully empowered to do this end to end and change things. So that's something Excel, and this is called, to be fair, customer feedback. Okay, Rishi, what I would ask you, and even Bas, it's that you now characterize in here with a different color, with a different sticky. Let's say it's blue, and say what's the nature of the problems that you are finding. Because then the way to tackle them is to go in the reverse order of the Kinefin framework.
I see.
So if we go to the Kinefin, so if you go here to the Kinefin framework, I mean, some of the definitions are a bit tricky, but not that much. Complex, complicated, clear, and chaotic. Let's go back to our. Okay, I'll have a sticky that is color blue, and this help me because I might be wrong. I'm gonna say this one in here is complex. Just from the top of my head. I'm gonna say that this one in here is how long have you been doing this? How long is the company working, Vidushi?
6 years.
6 years. So your maintenance still should be complex, but not chaotic. Okay. And let me pick up something from here. Let's by this time, I hope and believe that this should be obvious. But I don't know. So do you see what I mean? So if you could put a couple of stickers in here, we can build your roadmap. You see what I mean? Because then it's the aggregation of obvious to the other types. I'll just put in here the stickers with the colors, and if you guys can put some of them in here. So I'm like playing as a member of your team, saying, I think, not knowing your company, that at this moment this is obvious. I might be completely wrong. Okay, or I could the same thing for boss. So if you guys can put in here what you think, Vidushi built Satellite. She has a very nice course helping people to do things for real. So essentially, what I would like to characterize is this. Can you do that, Vidushi?
Yeah. You want me to do it in real time, or are you saying later?
Yeah, no, real time. I'll just put in here the colors so that.
Let me pop over there.
Just respect the colors of this one.
Hold on. It's just so many windows open. Hang on 1 second. All right. So we are.
I just copy the one above, okay? And then you put the stickers in there. Us, do the same thing, okay? Help out in here. Now copy one of the stickers and put it on top of the process, and let's see how it goes.
Yeah. I'll join in a second.
Okay.
Oh, I see. Okay. So what I'm seeing is when I copy yours, it keeps your name on it, not mine.
Oh my goodness. Winners, pick up others. I didn't know about that. Just put your name on the side thing.
Yeah.
And I'll put a couple more of notes from mine as okay.
So I can see it.
Vidushi, have you finished?
I've done 3 of them out of the 6. I think, yeah, if you want to keep going, I get the idea.
So you got the idea. Now, when we have a team, what I like to do is to limit we limit the time to mark the exercise cannot take more than 10 minutes. That 10, 15 minutes. That's kind of no discussion. People put stickers. And the whole idea is that we stress test now the things where there are the bigger differences. You see what I mean? This one is a difference because I thought one thing and this another. This one is potentially big between obvious and complex. But the whole point is that to start the agile transformation, again, where the team is fully empowered and Bas is still putting some stickers in there, we are gonna start in the obvious ones. And then from the obvious ones, move to the complicated or complex, but the last ones to be tackled should be the chaotic ones. And that will give you an idea. Now, if we select, we say this one has 2 points in here, we select in-house is the first process, or the first big goal is to do in-house assembly. All the team in there is able to focus and solve that problem. And that would be how you identify where to start an agile space project or an agile recovery project. Is that easy to do? I think it's easy to do. It's extremely fun to put the teams with times and with letters. So, any questions on that?
No, it seems, I mean, obviously this is something you have to work through, but I understand the approach.
Okay, so the question on when to work, and this is where it gets more hard, is that then you pick up your in-house assembly, Fiducia, and we need the breakdown of the in-house assembly. Okay, a bit like what's in here. It should be like the preparation. And the team needs, if we are starting on this one, I could share with you that I'm working because I think examples. Examples all examples. Okay, so the team in this case, we were working on we have a mechanical design. We had one mechanical design. Think about this as the breakdown. In the product backlog, I had several steps, and the team in there started working on, okay, this is the one that we are going to refine. The same thing. So you pull up cards for each one of the breakdowns in your in-house assembly, and every week, or I think you guys work in cycles of 1 week. Is that true? Or
Are you asking me?
yes. Do you work on 1 week deliverables or more longer?
More than 1 week.
Okay. One way to help is to have weekly defined deliverables. One way that allows to be more contained. Okay. But that's at least how we are doing. We have 1 week deliverables based on the high level. Think about this in-house assembly. We'll clear everything that we've got in here in the next week because it's the most important. And we have the sprint lasts for 1 week, and everyone delivers inside that based on the breakdown from the Trello board. It's more smaller, but it's extremely fast. So that's kind of how we've been working, and it's the guidance that I can offer. Okay, in those terms. Okay, having this said, I would like to ask you if regarding this chapter, if you could later on see the remaining of the chapter in your leisure time, and from what you've seen today, what kind of problems do you see, or what kind of questions do you have on how to implement the WHERE approach? Could you write them down? I'll start with mine. And Vidush, if you can take one, and ask us if you can take the other one, and writing down your questions for me to go back to Joe, or any questions that you like me to cover during the next week.
Yeah, I see.
Yeah, that was how the game goes. One of my questions have been always been on the focus, because there are always someone saying, "Oh, this project is more important than the other one, and the other one," and when we are dealing with extreme financial pressures, it's very easy for someone to it's very easy to say, let's pick up everything versus pick up one thing. So please write down your questions in here. Identify your name here, put the questions regarding the chapter. You can always go back to this, and I maintain a log of the work that is being done. Think you have an interesting thing in here, Vidushi, that is your first process is the chaotic one, and it influences the next ones moving forward. So, it's always a challenge, but it's usually very highly rewarding to start on this one, to start on something chaotic, then move ahead. Something that we can talk about the prioritization of that. Okay, is there a way to assure and my example is straightforward, guys. It's we build things for several of the NASA challenges, and I think that this has been chaotic, to be fair. Overall, our design process on the mechanical side is chaotic. That's a thing that we are struggling more, but it's how and we are trying to measure it by chunking down parts and codifying the requirements with the final customer. Sometimes it works, and having always second designs from external forces. So that's kind of how we have been playing it out. Okay, Lucy, any comments or questions for me to go back to Joe? Do you want us to follow up after this to go through end-to-end value chains or BAS? Let me know, please.
Yeah, I think let's keep going. I actually do have to leave at 1 today, but what I'll do is go back and look at the previous chapters just to contextualize what we're doing today, because I'm just jumping in, right?
Yeah, yes, all good. But I post the recording. So today I'm going to post on my YouTube channel the recording of the session number 2. Number 1 is already there. I'll post the recordings over there, and you can always reach me out. Okay.
Perfect.
Okay, guys, thank you very much. If you want to know more about our moon rover, I can tell you that it's running well. I also want to show you how it looks like since you've been here. We all deserve this. Let me show you our moon rover. It's pretty cool. Big suspense. Yeah, look. Go to my drive so that you can see. It's called the extract. Okay. Aha, here we go. Here we have it. So his name is the extract. The chassis we built it on based on something that exists already, and we are reconfiguring. I think. Oh, here we go. You can see the chassis. As you can see, the speeds are very slow speed. It has mounted some extra units, but our architecture is the one that is here below. And what you see is that you see, yeah, it's now it's starting to drill. It pulls up regolith. The regolith goes inside into I'm going to say a box, and from there it will move it down to the inspection side. Okay, you see it stopping now, and then piece more of the operation. Anyway, it's picking up. It's picking. It's still, the animation is still too fast, but it's picking up regolith and filling up filling up the container in the center. And from there, when that happens at the end, I hope we have the full video on. So the external wheels, the bucket drums, they are essentially for excavation. Okay, the wheels on the center, they are in what's called the Ackermann architecture. The wheels on the center will then move the extract. What happens is when we finish loading the surface, these wheels go out and these wheels start to move. They are independent. Then they go back to the location to drop down the rack. Okay. Well, I hope you enjoyed it. Any questions, please reach out. Okay.
Super cool.
Super cool.
Okay. Thanks, Bas. Vidushi, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, I will have to look at it. It's great.
Yes,
It's
thanks,
really great.
Yes, thank you so much.
Thanks, Vidushi. Any questions, just reach out and enjoy space. Enjoy your weekend.
You as well. Thanks. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you for having me invited. Thank you very much.
Good.